Breaking news out of our HQ studios in the NFL. Saints star wide receiver Michael Thomas is expected to miss the start of the 2021 season after undergoing surgery to repair ligaments in his ankle in June. Of course, coming off a subpar year where he only played 7 games. Based on the timing after the surgery, a recommended 4 months it could miss and to be sidelined for weeks. But when we're talking about Michael Thomas, historically he's been one of the best. Coming into the league in 2016, 1,000-yard season, all the way up into 2019. You see where he's ranked among some of the best that we've seen: Julio Jones, Calvin Johnson, AB, and OBJ there. But back to last season, 7 games, not so good. 40 receptions, 438, and you see that 0 for down there, no touchdowns, the worst of his career, and it'll be an uphill battle this year. No Drew Brees in the lineup, Jameis Winston, and if you're Sean Payton, you would like to have your #1 target there. Our Jonathan Jones, of course, confirming this report coming out earlier today. Speaking of JJ, joining us now, Jonathan Jones, and you hear this news here. If you're the Saints and Jameis Winston, you would like to have your #1 target to start training camp, let alone week 1, but that's not the case so far.
No, it's not. And Michael Thomas, according to a source, and confirming previous reports, is not going to be ready for week 1. We're not entirely sure how long it's going to be, so I don't want to guess if it's going to be a week 4 or week 6 or anything like that, but Michael Thomas will not be available to the New Orleans Saints here in training camp. And Brandon, you bring it up, whether it's Jameis Winston or Taysom Hill, there's a legitimate quarterback competition that Sean Payton wants to have and wants to take place there this upcoming month, these next few weeks. And without Michael Thomas, without Emmanuel Sanders, whom they lost in free agency, Jared Cook gone in free agency, you don't have a lot of those reliable targets from the previous seasons. And so if you're going to stage this quarterback competition, you're going to be doing it with some wide receivers, at least currently on the roster, who haven't proven a whole lot. Marquez Callaway, Will Jordan Humphrey. They have Nick Vannett there at tight end. Of course, you're always going to have Alvin Kamara, and you know what you have in him. But he's the guy that catches the ball out of the backfield, sometimes lines up in the slot, but is not that true X wide receiver. And so the Saints are going to have to figure that out, Brandon, here in the next couple of weeks. It's going to have to be a veteran free agent. They're going to have to go out there and try to find someone who can come in, get those reps, give quality reps to those quarterbacks, but also who can be able to contribute to this football team.
JJ, knowing that the surgery happened in June, but we're just now hearing about it, everybody reporting for training camp next Tuesday, the entire league, the rest of the league there. If you're the Saints, and you mentioned the in-house options they have, are they somewhat prepared for this, at least for maybe 4 or 5 weeks into the season, or is this something they have to go back and figure out their options across the board?
Yeah, when I texted a source just a little bit ago about it, they said, "Oh yeah, that." So they had known, the Saints had known about this for some time. So you would have to imagine that they had been preparing for it. You also mentioned the June surgery. What is currently in this exact moment unclear is why Michael Thomas would have waited until June. If this was maybe a cleanup surgery, still waiting to get more details about that. But yeah, for a new look Saints, this is pretty bad news. And this is also an injury for Michael Thomas that it plagued him last year, and now you're going into another season with this ankle injury, coming off, of course, his NFL Offensive Player of the Year performance in 2019, the All-Pro performance, one of the most productive wide receivers in the league. So this absolutely hurts a new look New Orleans Saints team, turning the page, creating a new chapter here in the post-Drew Brees era without their top wide receiver.
If you don't have him, of course, how much pressure does this put on Alvin Kamara, of course, coming off a stellar season last season there in New Orleans?
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, he is the engine that runs things, and really, frankly, and honestly, last year he was the engine. Knowing the limitations of Drew Brees' arm, he was the guy who. The quarterback is absolutely the most important position in all of sports. We understand that. But with that caveat said, New Orleans, I don't think really would have been the playoff contender and the playoff team that they were without Alvin Kamara if you would have replaced him with your average running back, if you believe that running backs are fungible. Most of them are. There's a tier that are not, and Alvin Kamara is absolutely on that tier. So Yeah, Taysom Hill, Jameis Winston, going to be relying so much on Alvin Kamara and the Saints personnel group, Sean Payton. Obviously, they're going to put their heads together and figure out, probably hold some free agent workouts, bring some guys in to try to figure out who they can have in camp. One, to get those reps, those very important reps again for those quarterbacks, but then also, depending upon how long Michael Thomas is going to be out into the regular season, this is a player or players who are going to have to be able to contribute, not just be camp bodies, not just give a target to these two quarterbacks, but actually contribute in significant ways to the team in the regular season.
I want to look at the regular season because you mentioned it out the gate. They start with the Packers, and if we, of course, we don't know the timetable, how long he might be out. But when you look at the season here for them, JJ, the Packers, Panthers, Patriots, and Giants, and then you get the bye at week 6. But if we're looking maybe at the first 5 games of the season, can they navigate, at least have a winnable record up to that point until when we might see Michael Thomas back in the lineup?
It's difficult to say. The Packers game is obviously going to be extremely difficult. I know a lot of people are high on the Carolina Panthers, and the Giants should have a bit of a turnaround and building on what they were able to do last season. It's all going to really be dependent upon who wins this quarterback competition, how good either one of these quarterbacks is that winds up winning it, be it Taysom, whom obviously Sean Payton has a ton of faith in, or Jameis Winston, he of just a few men who have ever walked this earth, who have thrown for 5,000 or more passing yards in a single season. Of course, he had those turnovers and those interceptions. And then, of course, when you do get Michael Thomas back. So plenty to be determined, again, on this Saints team that had a lot of attrition because this was a team that decided, hey, we're going to go all in for several years on getting a second Lombardi, right, with Drew Brees, with how they finagled the salary cap, with how they constructed so many of those veteran salaries, or the second contracts of so many of the fantastic guys that they drafted. Well, the bill came due back in March, and they didn't have that second Lombardi to show for it despite their best efforts. So many playoff heartbreaks, as we understand, and this is what happens, is you have to hit that reset, and you're going to try to keep the train moving as best you can in this post-Breeze chapter, but you got the salary cap issues, and now you have the injuries. These are things that unfortunately happen. The Saints are faced with them here at the start of the 2021 season.
JJ, before I let you go, with this news, does it tip it either way if we're looking at the QB battle that you mentioned between Jameis and Taysom here? With this news, does it tip it either way in Jameis' favor or maybe Taysom, or is that just unknown at this point?
Yeah, totally unknown. You go back to last year, and we were all anticipating when Drew Brees was out that it was going to be Jameis' show, and then Taysom gets the call, as we find out on that Friday before that game, and then we all said, I don't know how well Taysom's going to do, and then I think he went 3-1 as a starter or something like that during his time. So I'm not counting out Taysom Hill, even though my eyes and what I know about football would indicate Jameis. Obviously, Sean Payton knows a little bit more about football than I do, and he chose correctly last year in Taysom. They paid Taysom handsomely in terms of an extension this offseason. And so, I'm not going to bet against Taysom Hill. It's hard for me to say that it's going to be Taysom, and obviously lacking one of those top-tier, or your top-tier wide receiver in Michael Thomas is going to be difficult for both of those guys. I'm very excited to watch this quarterback competition play out.
And Sean Payton has his plate full there, finding a quarterback and now a number 1 receiver, at least for the first few weeks of the season there. Jonathan Jones, appreciate your time. Follow us on that breaking news with Michael Thomas set to miss the start of the season coming up in a few months. Speaking of Thomas, the past 2 years has been night and day. If you're looking at it, 2019, remember those are Drew Brees numbers. The 149, the record set season there, and 9 TDs. But then last year, 7 games plagued with injuries there, 40 receptions and no touchdowns. And moving into this year, of course, you got to wonder when he'll show up after having a little complications there with that surgery. And now waiting to see who his QB would be day 1.
Want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis. No yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.